Welcome to our lesson on factors affecting food security and farming techniques. The key questions for today are 1. What is food security? 2. What affects food security? 3. What is sustainability? Why is it important? 4. What farming techniques are used to improve efficiency? 5. Why do some people disagree with these farming techniques? The key words you will need to know are sustainability, intensive farming, ethical objections, efficiency, food security. Food security is the availability of enough food to feed a whole population. We will be focusing on the food security of humans. There are many biological factors that are threatening food security, and it's important that sustainable ways are found to feed everybody without causing a detrimental effect on future generations. Task. Can you think of any biological factors that affect the population's ability to get enough food to everyone? Some factors affecting food security are the increasing birth rate in some countries limits the amount of food and water available for each person, as there are more people who require the resources. The changing diets of people in developed countries means that food from less developed countries is transported around the world, leaving the less developed countries with less food, causing food shortages. There is an increasing demand for meat and fish across the world. New pests and pathogens that can affect crops and livestock affect the yield produced on farms, meaning food production is less efficient, which can lead to food becoming scarce. Climate change and changes to the environment are causing crops in some countries to fail, as there is not enough rain or sometimes too much rain, which floods the land and makes the soil waterlogged, so crops cannot grow. To increase efficiency of farming, farmers are having to spend more money on fertilizer or pesticides, which are expensive and sometimes not possible. Land previously used for farming is also being used to grow crops for biofuel instead of food. In some parts of the world where there is a conflict, some people do not have access to enough food or water. Task. Some factors increase the yield of crops from a farm and some decrease the yield. Look at the statements and state whether they increase the yield of crops or decrease the yield of crops. Genetically modified crops are grown. The growth of a new fungus. Nitrate fertilizer added to soil. Increased rainfall. Lower summer temperatures. New plant disease. Extension. Explain your answers. The growth of genetically modified crops often increases the yield. This is because the crops can often withstand changes in the environment better and are modified to increase the yield by growing larger or producing more of the crop. A new fungus or plant disease would decrease the yield of crops, as some or even all of the crop could be killed by the pathogen. Increased rainfall means there is more water in the soil. Plants require water to grow, so increased rainfall would increase the yield. Lower summer temperatures often inhibit the growth of plants, making them grow smaller and producing less crops. Some new farming methods are employed by farmers to attempt to increase the yield of their crops. These farming methods are called intensive farming, and some people have ethical objections to the use of these methods due to concerns about animal welfare. Intensive farming of animals aims to limit the energy losses and therefore the loss in biomass of the animals. This makes the food production more efficient. To achieve this, the animals are kept in confined spaces to limit their movement so that energy is not wasted on movement. This means animals are kept in small barns or cages. The animals are also kept warm by heaters so that energy is not wasted by them keeping warm. The animals are also fed high-protein diets to increase their growth rate. Due to the proximity of the animals and the warm temperatures, diseases spread very easily amongst the animals, so they are often given precautionary antibiotics. Traces of these antibiotics then end up in the food chain and are partly responsible for the resistant forms of bacteria emerging. People disagree with this treatment of animals on grounds of animal welfare and also the possibility of antibiotics being introduced into the food chain. Task: what are the advantages and disadvantages of intensively farming animals? The animals that are intensively farmed lose less energy, as they are kept in small, confined spaces, so cannot move around and are kept warm. This means that the biomass increases and more food is produced, thus increasing food security. However, it is unethical to keep animals in confined spaces and can lead to the spread of diseases and overuse of antibiotics, which can end up in the food chain. This graph is from an AQA exam question. It shows the mass of food producers per hectare of land for 4 different methods. Task: which method of farming is the most efficient? Extension: how could a farmer increase the efficiency of keeping sheep? The most efficient method of farming is growing wheat, as the mass produced per hectare is the highest. To improve the efficiency of keeping sheep, a farmer could keep them in a smaller space so they have less room to move, keep them inside so they are warmer, and feed them a high-protein diet. All of these would increase the biomass of the sheep so that more mass of meat is produced.